Shua Tov, everyone. Welcome to week number 56 in Tillis Tells WhatsApp Story Group. I adapted this story that was written by Rabbi Benjamin Edelson on his website nishmas.org. He retitled it "A Different Form of Manna." Rabbi Zusha of Anatoli was a major disciple of the Maggid of Mezrich. This is successor to the Baal Shem Tov, along with his elder brother, the famous Rabbi Elimelech of Lezhinsk. And the seemingly unsophisticated but clearly divinely inspired Rabbi Zusha is one of the more popular personalities in Hasidic history. Now, his custom was that each morning after davening the morning prayer, Shachrit, in which he spent hours, he would then go to a room that he had in the synagogue, and he would pray, referring to himself in the first person. Rabbanu Sha'olam, Master of the Universe, Zusha is very hungry. Zusha requires something to eat. And his attendant, who would be there but out of sight, would wait until he heard these words, and when Zusha finished this short prayer, so he would come into the room bearing Zusha's breakfast, which was usually a plate of cake and some schnapps, brandy or whatever. One day, this had built up over a while, but one day the attendant thought to himself, "No, what is this that he davens every day that God Almighty should give him his breakfast? Doesn't he know that I'm the one that brings him his breakfast? Why is he putting on a show like that?" And on the spot, he decided that the next morning, when Zusha said his usual litany, that he would just stay behind the scenes and he wouldn't do anything, and then he would see then Zusha would see who's really responsible for bringing him his breakfast. The next morning, Zusha, as usual, got up before dawn, that is, while it was still dark, and made his way to the mikveh to immerse himself, purify himself for the coming prayers and study of the day. And that night had been very rainy, and the streets of Anatoli had become quite muddy. So planks were laid for people to be able to cross from one side of the street to the other, so they wouldn't have to step into the flowing mud and puddles of mud. Coming in the other direction was a man, a traveler, not somebody from the town. He didn't know anybody in the town, and he's walking on the plank, this narrow plank, and he sees coming towards him on the same narrow plank this emaciated Hasidic figure dressed in almost rags, and he laughs to himself, and he calls out, "Tramp!" and he jumps up and down on the plank, and Zusha topples off into the mud. He had a good laugh, and meanwhile Rabbi Zusha just picked himself up, didn't say a word, and continued on his way to the mikveh. Meanwhile, the man, the stranger in town, still laughing happily to himself over the cute trick he played, he headed back for the inn where he was staying, and laughing all the way as he went over in his mind this amusing episode. And he couldn't hold back from bragging to the innkeeper about it. But the innkeeper didn't laugh, and he said, "Wait a second, describe to me this ignorant person you toppled into the mud." The man did so, and the innkeeper said, "Oh no, oy vey vey, what have you done? That was no simple beggar, and no wandering mendicant. That was the Rabbi Zusha." So now it's the stranger's turn to call it. Oy vey, what am I going to do now? What am I going to do? The innkeeper said, okay, look, you don't have to get so upset. I'll help you. I know what you should do. You should know that certainly when you met him, Rabbi Zusha was on the way to the mikveh, and certainly after that he went to daven. Every morning he davens for a number of hours. And then he goes into his room above the synagogue, and he always prays, Rabbonu Shalom, Zusha is hungry, Zusha needs something to eat. So I'll give you a platter with cake and some schnapps to drink, and you wait in the doorway of his room, but you wait outside the doorway of his room, and when you hear him finish his little prayer, so then you can go in and place and bring him breakfast, so to speak. You can place the platter of cake and schnapps before him, and beg his forgiveness. And I'm sure that he will forgive you. That's the kind of personality he is. So that's what they did. The innkeeper prepared for him breakfast for Rabbi Zusha, and he went to the shul and stood some distance from the room. And sure enough, Zusha came back after his long prayer, and when he sat down at his table and called out, Rabbonu Shalom, Master of the Universe, Zusha is hungry. Zusha needs something to eat. And his attendant, following his plan, he just crossed his arms. He was out of sight, and he just crossed his arms and held himself back and waited to see what would happen. He waited for Zusha to recognize that he needs his attendant. So what happened? Zusha finishes his prayer, and the door to his room swings open, slams open, and in comes this man who the attendant had never seen before, and he puts this platter of cake and a bottle of schnapps with a cup in front of Rabbi Zusha, falls to the floor and starts begging Rabbi Zusha to forgive him, which of course Rabbi Zusha did. And so now the attendant understood who it is that really provides breakfast for Rabbi Zusha every day.